They run my, and I didn't have to do that. I'm under no obligation to do it. You know, I don't know if you know George Washington. He ran his business simultaneously while he was president. Many other presidents, there weren't too many really rich presidents, but there were a few. They ran their business. Hey, Obama made a deal for a book. Is that running a business? I'm sure he didn't even discuss it while he was president. He has a deal with Netflix. When did they start talking about that? That's only, a couple of examples. But other presidents, if you look, but between what I list, and in all fairness, some properties, Doral an example. Doral was setting records when I bought it, because I owned it for a period of time. Setting records. There was nothing like it. It was making a fortune. And then what happened? I announced I'm going to run for office, right? And all of a sudden, I say, we got to build a wall, we got to have borders, we got to have this, we got to have that. All of a sudden, some people didn't like it. They thought the rhetoric was too tough. And it went from doing great to doing fine. It does very nicely now. It's actually coming back, I understand, very strongly. But Doral was setting records. And I knew this would happen. Most of the stuff that I have, because now instead of having 100% of the market that loves you and they love your brand and it's luxury and it's great, now you have 50% of the market. That's called politics. I fully understood that. So it's cost me between $2 billion and $5 billion. And if I had it to do again, I'd do it in an instant. Because who cares? If you can afford it, what difference does it make? If I had this to do again, because I'm making a big difference for the country. The country is stronger now than it's been in many years, maybe ever. Our military is rebuilt. Our economy is hitting records. As I said, best unemployment numbers, best employment numbers. We're strong. We're bringing our soldiers back home from the endless wars. We're doing great. So whether I lost $2 billion, $5 billion, more or less, doesn't make any difference to me. I don't care. If you're rich, it doesn't matter. I'm doing this for the country. I'm doing it for the people that show up. I haven't had an empty seat at a rally. I always say, where's the rally? It's in a certain place. Okay, just get the biggest arena. I go into these massive basketball arenas like in Dallas where the Mavericks play and fill it up and set a record. I've set a record almost every place I've been because we just need a little small stage. We don't need basketball courts, ice hockey courts. And I take less than musicians because they have bands. I don't have band. I set the world record for somebody without a guitar, okay? I don't have bands, right? So that's the story. And those people are the poll. And I've had great polls. I've had my best polls now. I think it's because people think that it's terrible what they're doing. Pelosi, Shifty Schiff, Schumer, these people are trying to destroy the country. It's a very bad thing what they're doing. The President of the United States should be allowed to run the country, not have to focus on this kind of crap, while at the same time doing a great job on Syria and Turkey and all of the other things that we're doing. North Korea, okay, maybe someday, but I'll tell you what, if somebody else became president with that same mindset that they had, you'd right now be in a big war with North Korea. You don't hear too much about it. Could happen. Could happen. I don't know. I always say, who knows? It's deals. Who knows? But in the meantime, North Korea's, I like him. He likes me. We get along. I respect him. He respects me. You could end up in a war. President Obama told me that. He said the biggest problem, I don't know how to solve it. He told me he doesn't know how to solve it. I said, did you ever call him? No. Actually, he tried 11 times. But the man on the other side, the gentleman on the other side, did not take his call. Okay? Lack of respect. But he takes my call. Thank you very much, everybody.
What's the plan for the G7 now?
We'll look at other locations. I don't think it'll be as exciting. I don't think it'll be as good. It'll cost the country a fortune because it's very expensive. I know France had a budget of many, many millions of dollars. They just did it. They did a great job, by the way. But France had a budget of many, many millions of dollars. It's going to cost, a fortune for the country. I was willing to do it for free. But people didn't like that. They thought I may get some promotional value. I need promotional value so badly, right? I don't need promotional. Go ahead. What did you say? What else? Steve? No? That's it?
On Iran.
On Iran, what?
Yeah.
Say it. What you mentioned the word impeach?
Do you believe that it's a foregone conclusion that the House will impeach?
Well, I think they want to. Any Democrat wants to, because they're not going to beat me in the election. So of course they want to impeach. Why wouldn't they want to impeach me? It's so illegitimate. It cannot be the way the founders, our great founders, meant this to be. But I see this guy, Congressman Al Green, say we have to impeach him. Otherwise he's going to win the election. What's that all about? But that's exactly what they're saying. We have to impeach him because otherwise he's going to win. I'm going to win the election. Look, I have the strongest economy ever. It's the economy, stupid, right? I have the strongest economy in the history of our country. Okay? We're setting records. Over 100 times, I think it's like 118, but over 100 times we've had the highest stock market in history since November 8th. Over 100 times. And by the way, the day I got elected, the following day from there until January 20th, the market went through the roof. You know why it went through the roof? Because they got rid of Obama and they got rid of Clinton. And if anybody else, if any of these people that I've been watching on the stage got elected, your 401ks would be down the tubes. They'd go down not 20% or 30%. They'd go down 70, 90, 80. You'd destroy this country. You'd destroy the country. So I think they want to impeach me because it's the only way they're going to win. They've got nothing. All they have is a phone call that was perfect. All they have is a whistleblower who's disappeared. Where is he? He's gone. Then they have a second whistleblower. The second whistleblower's got, where is he? He disappeared. Then they have an informant. Oh, the informant is, where is he? They're interviewing ambassadors who I'd never heard of. I don't know who these people are. I never heard of them. And I have great respect for some of them. One of them said just recently, a very, very highly respected man, I'm not going to get into their names, but said, no, we were very, very bothered by Joe Biden and his son. Back during the Obama administration, he said, he's supposed to be their witness. Don't forget, many of these people were put there during Obama, during Clinton, during the never Trump or Bush era. You know, you had a never Trump or Bush. You have heard of those people. Those people might be worse than the Democrats, the never Trumpers. The good news is they're dying off fast. They're on artificial respiration, I think. But no, impeachment, they want to impeach, and they want to do it as quick as possible. And that's pretty much the story.
What
Okay?
about Republican support? Are you working behind the scenes?
I think I have great
to show
Republican
or
support.
Do you run the risk of alienating any
No, I don't think so at all. No,
Republicans?
you know what?
Someone's very angry about the
Look,
Syria decision.
no, you don't. I have to do what I have to do. I'll tell you what. I want to bring our soldiers back home. If people want to leave them there, I'll take that every day. All I know, you were at Dallas, all I know is the place went crazy when I said we're bringing our soldiers back home within this little area. This is a very unique area. They may feel that. But I have to do what I got elected on, and I have to do what I think is right. Now, if I got elected on something and think I was wrong, I'd second guess myself, I'd change. But they want our soldiers back home. And I think we can do as well or better, frankly. Let them, they've got to keep going at each other. It's artificial to have these soldiers walking up and down between two big countries. And by the way, I'm just informed, Larry Kudlow is going to say a few remarks. If you want, would you like to stay for Larry's remarks? Because he's a great, great remark maker. Larry, after that whole thing, Larry, get up and go get it. I'm sure it'll be great. Let them know how we're doing, Larry. We're doing poorly, let them know, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it very much. Here's a point I want to make right at the start. You put out some great numbers on some of the recent releases. You know, first and foremost, this is a middle-class boom. I can't emphasize that enough. This is a middle-class boom, even though perhaps some people won't give us credit for it. We've been rebuilding the economy, re-incentivizing the economy, lower taxes, lower regulations, opening up the energy sector, tough trade reforms for level playing fields. So, after 2.5 years, average real family income, $65,000. In fact, it's really closer to $66,000. It's a $6,000 gain. It's about 8%. It's better than anything our predecessors have done, be they Democrat or Republican. I'm not being partisan here.
Maybe ever, Larry, right? Maybe ever.
I have to go
Go
back.
check it. I don't think it's ever been done.
But it's a long ways, you're right. 65,000, almost 66,000. That is the middle of the middle. So I think that's very important, and the increase of roughly 8% has never been done before. And actually, if you look at the composition of wage increases, sir, the biggest gains have come in the middle quintile, the fourth and the fifth. The lowest 10% have had the biggest increases. Not the highest wages, mind you, but the biggest gains, which is what really matters to individual people. So I think that's absolutely a key point. The policies have spurred a middle-class boom. Now, 3.5% unemployment, lowest in 51 years, 1.4% inflation. We've had a 50% increase on balance for the stock market. Household net worth up $12 trillion. So we're about $103 trillion to $103 trillion for American household net worth. Disposable income is now growing at 3%. The reason these key points, inflation, stocks, income, wages, there's a model, there's a couple of these models, they're very interesting. I'm going to talk about the Moody's model. It's been run by a friend of mine, it's an old friend of mine, Mark Zandi. Does not have much sympathetic views towards our administration, or me for that matter, but nonetheless, he's a good guy personally. I don't take this stuff personally. But their model is now showing, because of stocks, inflation, what he calls the pocketbook model, which is the average family income you talked about before, $66,000. His electoral range is 289 to 351. 289 to 351, I believe you need 270 to win. And the most important one is the pocketbook. The pocketbook model gives you 351,000. My former boss, Ronald Reagan, used to call it take-home pay. We're seeing it once again. Is this stuff going to happen? Well, their view is, and Oxford Economics said the same thing, if we continue along this path.
Are they predicting who's going to win the election, Larry? Is that what you're saying?
Those are the kinds of numbers that suggest a very substantial victory. A very substantial victory. Let me go on again. I'll be brief on the wrap up here. America is working, as you said, 6 million jobs, 500,000 some odd manufacturing job increases since you took office. Let me make this point. I've been working hard on this, trying to convince my former colleagues in the media. September payrolls, we're still working. September payrolls, including their revisions, up 181,000, okay? 7.1 million job openings, 7.1 million job openings, 5.8 million unemployed. We have more job openings than we have unemployed. This is the 18th straight month. That is a very rare economic stat.
Almost never happens.
But let me go under the hood just for a second. Besides the payroll numbers, there's another survey from which unemployment comes from, right? That 3.5% unemployment rate comes from something called the household survey, which tends to ask individual family members, small businesses, entrepreneurs, and startups, okay? Household survey in the last 4 months is exploding, and it is averaging close to 400,000 per month. In other words, payrolls came in at 180. The household survey is averaging close to 400,000. A lot of business and financial economists believe the household survey is your leading indicator. It tells me, sir, we could be in for another takeoff on the jobs story. Wages, non-supervisory production wages up 3.5%. One more leading indicator, the housing market, which has been soft for over a year. We're now seeing single-family starts, sales and pending sales have now shown several months of steady increases. That's a good leading indicator that the economy is going to be speeding up, not slowing down. All this in the face of a couple of years of very tight monetary policy and the fact that the rest of the world is not growing. Basically, Europe's been in recession. The rest of the world's been in a virtual recession because of our incentive-minded policies, because of our emphasis on trade and energy and deregulation. We are growing twice as fast as the rest of the world, and the numbers are telling me we may be ready for another pickup. We may be poised for another pickup after a quarter or two of softness. So I think we're in pretty good shape, sir. These are facts. My colleagues or my former media colleagues may or may not agree, but I'm happy to go through the facts, which is what I'm really interested here. And of course, it's not breaking news that I'm a low tax rate supply sider from the Reagan-Laffer years. But I do want to bring in my friend and colleague Russ Vaught of OMB, because part of this is the regulatory story,
Okay.
the deregulatory story, which is helping jobs.
We've cut regulations more than any administration in history, and that's in 2.5 years. So in 2.5 years, we've cut more regulation than any administration in the history of our country, and they've been for 8 years, and in one case for more than that. So that's been pretty good. Thank you very much, Larry.
Give it over to
That
Russ.
was very
Thank you,
good.
sir.
And Russ, vote.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Russ, if you could
Yeah,
talk
we're
about.
going like gangbusters, Mr. President, as a result of your commitment to the deregulatory initiative. Some numbers for our group here. 9 to 1, you set a commitment of two deregulatory initiatives for every one. We're now at 9 at the close of our 3rd year. That is $50 billion in cost savings, up from $33 billion. And that's just for those who are regulatory parties. So if you look at the economy-wide cost savings, it's $220 billion of savings for regulations, deregulatory initiatives in the pipeline. And that's just the first round. Right now, we're going through a process to figure out what's next. We want to be finishing the big deregulatory initiatives this year that you ran on. We're going to go forward this year with some exciting things to make sure infrastructure and permitting happens on a much quicker basis. The Vice President's going to be leading a task force with governors to really multiply the efforts that they're doing on the state level, things like occupational licensing, to make sure that a hairdresser in Montana who doesn't have to, when she moves, doesn't have to go through 1,000 hours of training when she moves to Idaho. That's the kind of thing that we want to multiply between the states and the federal government to be able to really expand on the work that you've been doing. So we're excited about that, and we can't think of deregulatory initiatives without thinking about the work that Andrew Wheeler is doing at EPA. So I would love if you want to talk about your initiatives as well.
Okay, good. I think I'll maybe start with you, Andrew, if you could, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm here to update you on the implementation of your executive order regarding waters in the U.S. As you know, under the Clean Water Act, EPA regulates the discharge of pollutants into the nation's navigable waters, also known as waters of the U.S., or WOTUS. In 2015, the Obama administration illegally expanded WOTUS to include things such as dry channels that only flows when it rains, isolated ponds, ditches. That meant that the vast majority of the nation's waters would have fallen under the federal control. The Iowa Farm Bureau estimated that 97% of the state of Iowa would have fallen under federal control. North Dakota Agriculture Commissioner estimated that over 90% of North Dakota would have been under federal control. The Obama EPA claimed that the rule was in the interest of water quality, but it was really about power in the hands of the federal government. The rule upset the federal-state partnership, and expanding WOTUS would have meant more landowners would have had to obtain costly federal permits for activities on private property. The permit process can cost anywhere from $30,000 to $300,000 for a water permit, and it takes 1 to 2 years or more. So the 2015 rule was mirrored in litigation. 31 states opposed it. And Mr. President, you knew that the Obama WOTUS power grab was trouble from the get-go, and when you took office, you immediately asked us to fix the problem. EPA and the Department of Army are implementing your WOTUS executive order in a two-step process. Last month, Army Corps Head R.D. James and I signed the final Step 1 rule repealing the 2015 rule. So the 2015 rule is no longer on the books. We revert back to the previous water definitions prior to 2015. We are working on finalizing Step 2, our new proposed WOTUS definition that we proposed last December. The proposal will clearly define what is a federal wetland as well as what is not, which is just as important, and it will limit where federal regulations apply. Our overreaching goal is that a property owner should be able to stand on his or her property and be able to tell for themselves whether or not they have a federal waterway without having to hire outside consultants to do that for them. We received over 600,000 comments on our proposal, and we intend to finalize our proposal this winter.
Thank you very much, and I know you're working on the small refineries, getting that straightened away so that it's going to be terrific for the small refineries. They've been hurt for a long time, and we gave them waivers for this year, and that's helped them a lot. But I want you to work on that, make sure the small refineries are happy. And for the farmers, ethanol now has been fully approved. We spoke with Joni Ernst, we spoke with, and very importantly, we spoke with Chuck Grassley. And the ethanol, the whole situation with ethanol that has been going on for so long, for so many years, we have that now where it's finished, approved, done, and we're getting things ready to sign. Perhaps, Sonny, you could just talk about ethanol for our farmers for a couple of minutes.
You've done a couple of things, Mr. President. You first of all committed to and fulfill your promise of making E15 year-round. That's what's really needed to build infrastructure. That's a 50% increase in domestic usage there, which will happen. Good for the economy, good for the air, and good for the ag farmers in that way. You've also balanced up the small refinery waivers with the farmers and RFS, and once they fully understand what you've done here, they'll be fine and as they see it implemented.
Yeah, they seem to be very happy. They deserve to be happy. They've gone through a lot. They were targeted by China, as you know, and we took some of the money out of the tariff, $16 billion and $12 billion for the two last years. And we gave it back to the farmer. They don't even want it. They just want a level playing field. But they were targeted unfairly by China. Now China is buying tremendous amounts of product, agricultural product. They've started, maybe Bob Lighthizer could give us just a little update. I noticed that today China sent out a statement that the deal is coming along very well, that they expect to have a deal. Do you want to talk about China for a couple of seconds, Bob?
Yeah, sure, Mr. President. We had deputy level meetings this morning. Secretary Mnuchin and I are going to be talking to our counterparts on Friday, and we think we're making great progress. As you say, our target is to have phase one deal done by the time you go to Chile. And while there are still some issues we have to resolve, we're working towards that goal.
Well, one little example is the farmers. So they were told, and I was told, if we could get $20 billion a year in purchase, the biggest they've ever done is 16, is what I've heard and what they've said. If we could get $20 billion a year from China, that China purchases $20 billion a year of agricultural product, that would be a great thing. So my people had $20 billion done, and I said, I want more. They said, the farmers can't handle it. I said, tell them to buy larger tractors. It's very simple. They'll buy more land and they'll buy larger tractors. But I want more. And I said, we want 60 billion to 70 billion, and we agreed to 40 to 50 billion. So they wanted 20 billion, I got 40 to 50 billion, and they've already started buying. And that's just the way it goes. So I want to thank China for that, and they have started the buying. So while we're papering the deal, and that's going well, we hope to sign it probably in Chile when we have a summit in Chile, or wherever that may be. But we'll be able to, we think, sign a completed document with China on phase one. Then we start working on phase two. And actually, things in phase two are easier than phase one. But it's so big, like as an example of the agricultural products, it's so big that we thought doing phases would be good. But actually, the things in the second phase are in many ways a lot easier than the things in the first phase. So we'll see how that goes.
Mr. President, I'm not sure who told you the farmers couldn't handle it, but it wasn't me.
I think they could. I want the farmers to come tell me, sir, we can't produce that much. The farmers don't know that language, right?
Right.
So we took it from 20 to potentially $50 billion. It'll be more agriculture will be bought, product will be bought than any time in our history by far. That's on top of the Japan deal that we just made, where Japan is buying a tremendous amount of ag and other things from our country and our farmers. Our farmers have been great. They never wavered. They said the president's doing the right thing. We're sticking with the president. I'll tell you, I didn't see anybody. They looked. some of the networks, they looked all over for somebody that could speak negatively about the president. And those farmers, suddenly they stuck. They said, nope, he's doing the right thing. It may be hurting us, but he's doing the right thing. And I think in many ways the farmer maybe is going to be the biggest beneficiary of what we're doing. Certainly one of them. I think our country's going to be the biggest beneficiary. Secretary, could I ask you to talk a little bit about drug pricing, because we've cut it down a lot. And we had the first year ever where prices actually went down. And if we had Democrat support, we could get them way down, but we don't have a lot of Democrat support. If you could talk about it, please.
Sure. So we've had the third year in a row under President Trump's leadership of historic levels of approving generic drugs. Those are the affordable alternatives to brand drugs. We're approaching 3,000 generic drugs approved under your tenure. That led to, just in the first 18 months of your term, $26 billion of savings for people from those more affordable alternatives. And as a result, we have seen now for the first time in 51 years the largest decrease in prescription drug pricing under the Labor Department's inflation index, the largest decrease in 51 years. We're working with Congress, of course, trying to craft a bipartisan package there. I think we're in agreement on about 80% of the items. We're probably the most flexible party in the negotiations between the Democrats and the Republicans, and trying to deliver real savings for the American people. But we're not stopping. We're continuing to work on your scheme to bring drugs in from Canada, to import drugs, and how we can make sure we're getting the same kind of deals for the American senior that other developed countries are getting, as you call it, most favored nation status. So we're driving ahead.
So I've read for years that other countries have much lower drug prices than we do. So I said to a couple of our governors, including Ron DeSantis of Florida, who's very much into it, go to Canada, where the prices are 50%, buy it from Canada. We'll give you the approval. And we're working on those final approvals now. So Canada buys because of arcane rules and because of protecting the middlemen and protecting drug companies, frankly. Other countries have prices that are much, much lower, more than 50% in some cases. Canada's pricing is much lower. So I told Ron DeSantis, I told other governors, go to Canada, go to other countries, buy them. Same product, same exact manufacturing, many times manufactured in the same plant. And a pill will cost you 50% or less than it does in the United States. That just shows you how bad people have run our country. And we're going to get tremendous price cuts on drugs. And we're in the process, and I'd like you to speed that up, Alex, if you could. Really speed it up. Because Canada is loving to sell it. And you're going to buy the exact same product for 50%. That means people are going to get a 50% reduction in drug prices. So, and in some cases, substantially more. It's hard to believe how this country was taken advantage of by, frankly, everybody in every different way. Okay? So thank you. And I'd like to ask Gene Scalia to maybe speak. Gene is a highly respected gentleman and one of the best lawyers in the country, focused on labor law, and he's now Department of Labor Secretary. And it's great to have you at our first meeting. And thank you. Your first meeting. I'm very proud of you. He passed with a massive majority of a few votes. What was the number?
53-44.
That's considered a massive. It's probably the largest. Nobody can believe it.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor to join you, the Vice President, and the Cabinet in the important work you're doing for the American people, including on the economic front. You and Larry Kudlow mentioned some of those numbers, which really are virtually unprecedented. As you said, in some cases, unprecedented unemployment numbers since we've been tracking for African Americans, for Hispanic Americans, the lowest unemployment rate for women in generations. And as Larry said, for those at the lower end of the economic scale, they particularly are enjoying these benefits. Americans who don't have a high school degree have the lowest unemployment rate we've ever seen. And this has been in part because of your efforts to bring about deregulation, to free employers to grow, offer more jobs. I wanted to mention two that we're doing at the Labor Department, and they're both as a result of executive orders that you issued, Mr. President. The first has to do with what we call association health plans. And this is for small employers who employ tens of millions of American workers. They're critical to our economy. but they find it hard to provide reasonably priced health care to their workers. So what we did was we reduced some regulatory hurdles that stood in the way of small employers coming together, forming an association, working with the local Chamber of Commerce, for example, to provide health care through that association. That association can give the economies of scale of a larger company. It has leverage of a larger company. It has other ways that it can tailor the benefits available to these employees at the small employers. The CBO has estimated that about 4 million Americans will benefit from these programs, and that they'll have premium reductions of as much as $2,000 as a result of these plans. I should say, some disgruntled state attorneys general, this has happened before, Mr. President, they've sued over one of your regulatory initiatives, but I'm also pleased to say that my favorite attorney general, yours, my former boss, Bill Barr, his lawyers at the Justice Department are defending this litigation right now.
Then we should win.
And we've got a related plan, what we call association retirement plans, and this again was as a result of an executive order you issued, Mr. President. Same concept. Let smaller employers come together, achieve economies of scale, exercise leverage in negotiating to offer 401k plans. There are about 40 million Americans who don't have a retirement plan, don't have a 401k plan. This will make it easier for them to get those plans. So, Mr. President, those are two examples of steps that are helping the economy. They're deregulating, but as I've described, they're helping workers get health care, get retirement.
That's a big thing on the 401k, James. That's very important. Thank you. Kellyanne, you were going to say about buyback.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. Because of the focus that you and the First Lady and the entire Cabinet administration have placed on combating the drug supply, drug demand crisis in our nation, we are happy to report the first decline in 30 years of overdose deaths due to drugs. Decline of 5.1% overall, falling off of its peak in some of our states up to 24%. A 24% reduction in overdose deaths in Ohio, 23% in Pennsylvania. We got about 19% in Iowa, 17% in Kentucky, 11% in New Hampshire, and 9% in the hardest hit state of West Virginia.
Those are really incredible numbers, folks. I mean, you're not going to report them, so we're just wasting our time.
Perhaps they will, but it may.
Those are great numbers.
But this battleship is turning in the right direction, albeit slowly. But Mr. President, the most significant bipartisan accomplishment, in my view, of your presidency was H.R. 6. We're on the year anniversary of H.R. 6. Every single Democrat voted for H.R. 6, including the ones running for president. It is the largest investment of billions of dollars in prevention, education, treatment and recovery, and surveillance and interdiction in our nation's history on any one drug crisis. Part of the education and equipping America is called Take Back Day. The Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA, runs 2 Take Back Days each year. The next one is this Saturday. Since the Trump administration got into office, we've collected 4.6 million pounds of unused prescription drugs. Let me repeat that. It's not just 4.6 million drugs, that would be something. 4.6 million pounds. That's the weight of 18 Boeing 757 aircrafts just collected. So it is a drug supply and a drug demand crisis. We have partnered with over 5,000 law enforcement agencies, and due to private sector partnerships with CVS, Rite Aid, Google, Walgreens, Walmart, and the rest, we have 8,300 total sites nationwide now that Google will map out for us. So if you just type into the computer, take back my drugs, return prescription opioids, they will show you locations in your area, tell you how to drive or walk there. It's a safe way of returning your drugs. I think it's more convenient and more compassionate way for people to return unused, unneeded, expired pills. That happens on Saturday. The Cabinet has been so consistently and so deeply involved, and I want to thank each and every one of them for this effort, Mr. President, as well as the First Lady and you. Also, I'm happy to report that CVS has fulfilled its commitment to double the number of take-back sites, and in our effort to make everyday take-back day, people don't need to wait any longer for every 6 months. Walgreens, CVS, they've got sort of safe delay, safes where you're delaying the distribution of pharmaceuticals to make sure it's going to the person it's intended to go. Happy to report the NFL 2 weeks ago sent out a message to all of its NFL clubs, equipping them to show our Trump administration public service announcements on Opioid Take-Back Day, along with graphics, and the NFL Network is involved. And finally, Major League Baseball last week agreed to show DEA's Take Back Day public service announcement this Friday during the World Series. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Kellyanne. Take Back Day is a big deal, and they've been talking about it for a long time. Nobody's ever done it, but it is big. And Alex wanted to mention just one additional thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, just on the deregulation agenda, deregulation is it's a key part of that great health care that you've promised the American people, this vision of a personalized, affordable, patient-centric system that puts you, the patient, in the center and in control, treats you like a human being, not like a number, because if you're focusing on the bureaucracy, that's not focusing on the patient. So we've delivered $12.5 billion of regulatory savings. That's over half of the entire government. I'll give you an example. We have freed up 40 million hours of doctor and nurse time to not be doing paperwork. 40 million hours have been freed up that they can spend with patients instead. It's just an incredible change, and we're just keep delivering that level of deregulation each year.
And something that some people think could be as big or bigger than healthcare is transparency. We're doing transparency. And do you want to give just a 1-minute update on that? Transparency in pricing and transparency on the quality of your doctor?
Sure. Yeah, so this is something the president's often said that transparency, his initiatives on transparency could be bigger than any kind of healthcare, individual healthcare plan that you might have. What he means by that is what we have proposed is making all of a hospital's rates, what they have negotiated with the individual insurer, transparent and available so that you, the patient, would know before you go to the hospital what something's going to cost you on your actual insurance plan. And then we'll do that with insurance regulations so that your insurance company will send you, before you go to the doctor's office, an advance explanation of benefits that tells you the list price, the negotiated price, and what you'll pay out of pocket. We're going to make this information available to you as individuals. This is going to empower you. This will shake up the entire healthcare system to put the patient at the center so that you have the right to create a real consumer experience in healthcare, unlike what we've had for the last 50 years.
And just to end, as our trade deals start kicking in, these trade deals are incredible. Whether it's North Korea, South Korea, North Korea is going to be, probably something's going to be happening with North Korea too. There's some very interesting information on North Korea. A lot of things are going on. And it's going to be a major rebuild at a certain point. And South Korea is getting much more involved with us than we ever thought in terms of the economy and in terms of the trade deal. A lot of money's being spent over there, and they're going to be doing it through us. They've been doing tremendous purchases. We had a tremendous deficit with them, and we're slowly eating away at these deficits. We had deficits with everybody. But as the trade deals start kicking in with China, especially phase one with the farmers and with the banks, the banking system, financial services, as they start kicking in, you're going to see a tremendous difference in the economy. The economy is already by far #1. So if I weren't elected, by right now, China would be the largest economy in the world. It was expected. It was said by many people that China would right now, they were expecting around the second year of this term. Not only aren't they the biggest economy in the world, but they are way, way, way far away. We are much bigger than the China economy, and we're getting bigger, and they're not now. They have 1.4 billion people. I guess you'd call that an advantage. But we have an economy like no other. I think we have the strongest economy we've ever had. And I think if you add the economy, the military, and all the other things that we've done, there's nothing like it. But when trade deals start kicking in, and as I said, the South Korea deal did kick in, and things are happening with that are very positive. But as they kick in, you're going to see tremendous numbers, tremendous changes, because the trade deals we had were so pathetic. They were so bad. I used to sit back and say to Lighthizer, how did somebody actually negotiate these deals? How did they even negotiate them? This was done at a level that it's not even understandable why people were allowed to do it, how they were allowed, how they got passed. But we're making great deals, and when they kick in, the economy, as good as it's been doing, I think, Larry, I can say that as good as it's been doing, it's going to be even better than that. So our country is doing fantastically well, perhaps better than ever before. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much.